All right, guys, welcome to the premiere episode of WCAG Wednesday, where each week we walk you through the success criteria for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. In today's episode, I thought we'd start at the beginning. Before we dive into success criteria, I thought it might be good to take a look at two key items. One, a short history of the WCAG guidelines, and two, the four basic principles that drive them, known as the POUR principles. WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. But before the 1.0 release in 1999, Greg Vanderheiden compiled his own guideline in 1995, sparked by seeing a keynote speech by Mike Paciello. Between 1995 and 1999, more than 38 different web guidelines were released from various sources. Eventually, these were compiled into the Unified Website Accessibility Guidelines, which was a starting point for the WCAG 1.0. While WCAG 1.0 focused mainly on HTML, in 2008, WCAG 2.0 was developed to encompass all digital media. And in 2012, the WCAG 2.0 guideline was accepted by the International Organization for Standardization as an ISO international standard. WCAG 2.0 was updated in 2018 by the WCAG 2.1 release to add guidelines focusing on mobile accessibility. And as you may or may not know, WCAG Silver is continuing the evolution of WCAG and is due to be released sometime in the near future. So that's an overview of WCAG. Thanks for sticking with me so far. I always say that before you know where you're going, you need to know where you've been. I also think it's important that we understand the four basic principles behind the WCAG guidelines and accessibility in general. These guidelines are often referred to as the POUR principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Because even if you can't remember success criteria 1.3.1 use of color only, I bet you can remember the word perceivable. So let's take a look at each one. Perceivable. The data presented must be available for access by sight and through assistive technology like screen readers. Access is the key word here, because if there's no way for a screen reader to get to the content to identify or voice the content, then to those using assistive technology, the content really doesn't exist. Operable. At a minimum, the user must be able to navigate through the data presented with a keyboard or assistive technology. This goes hand in hand with perceivable. Maybe you've done your job by adding all the proper markup, but if someone can't use a keyboard to navigate the content, or in the case of things like pop-up windows, back to the original content, the presentation definitely isn't operable. Understandable. The data presented must be clear and understandable. The use of color only or complex symbols without a secondary meanings of interpretation should be avoided. This is one that seems to trip up most people. On one extreme, you have people who think adding alt text to an image of a table is just fine. And on the other hand, you have those who want to make sure that every element has a 3:1 color contrast ratio or some crazy pattern and end up with a map or chart or graph that is so visually complex it violates the very principle the designer was trying to comply with. In this series, we're going to spend quite a bit of time focusing on the different elements of the POUR principles specifically. We'll explore several ways to present clear and understandable data. So hopefully you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so we can take the journey together and meet back here each Wednesday. The last of the four principles is robust, which states there should be multiple ways for the user to interpret and navigate through the document or web page. This principle really speaks to structure, because when we use things like headings and captions and lists, we give users landmarks and launch points and options for digesting our content. While most of us read a novel from beginning to end, all of us read magazines differently. Some of us scan the table of contents looking for headings that seem interesting. Some flip through the pages looking for photos or graphics, and others know exactly what they're looking for and head right to those awesome surveys to find out what their love language is, right? The point is, we all digest information differently, so giving people who use assistive technology those same options is important. Well, that brings us to the end of our first episode of the WCAG Wednesdays. If you can remember these four principles as you design documents, websites, apps, or interfaces, you'll spend a lot less time fixing things to make them accessible, and a lot less time designing things that are already closer to accessibility standards. I know this was just an overview of accessibility, but it is such an overwhelming topic for most people that I thought I would start with the basics. For those of you who can't wait to dive into the specific key points of accessibility, stick with me. It's coming. I promise. We'll spend plenty of time discussing all things accessibility in the weeks to come. But that only happens if you hit the like button and subscribe to my series so you get notified the next time my video is released. Until then, this is Dax Castro wishing you happy tagging.